I have nothing but mixed opinions after watching this first Raw episode of 2020. Like, when I'm watching this show, a lot of me can see why people will say this was a good show. Like, especially that first, hour and a half, especially. Like, pushing 2 hours. Like, what they were doing, it wasn't, bad. It wasn't bad. It was just kind of illogical. There are a lot of gaps in what they're doing. But, the content we were getting on this show, it wasn't bad by any means. It was genuinely engaging kind of content. Granted, if you really think about some of this stuff, it doesn't make much sense, but still, okay. Well, the show we got tonight, if you want to sit down and watch this, it's not going to be that hard to watch, okay? So in that regard, I think the show delivered, because personally, this could have been so much worse than it was. I mean, honestly, knowing how WWE booked these shows, looking at it in totality, they made a bit of a conscious effort to actually try a little bit for 2020, to try and probably give some, blinded fans hope that maybe 2020 is going to be a great year for the WWE. Which, if you think that, God spare you, you can't be saved. You're just drowning in WWE Kool-Aid, but still. This Raw episode, January 6th, 2020, as I said before, the first half or so of it, I was actually entertained by, and I like what they were doing in a lot of the cases. Granted, there's some stuff which I'm just going to break down in a few minutes. And then the second half of this show, I don't expect Raw to be consistently good for 3 hours. I think anyone can at this point, but the second half of this show, not the best, Lana Rusev Bob Lashley segment, that never helps. So, anyway, without further ado, let's get into the review. So we open the show, Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman addressing the Royal Rumble and Brock's opponents. So, Heyman, he was incredibly over during his, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul Heyman intro. Heyman talked about how there's no one worthy on the Raw, SmackDown, and NXT rosters of facing Brock Lesnar, which is a valid point, and they've no one to blame but themselves for that one. Heyman talks about how at times Brock Lesnar was counted out in his career before listing his accolades and praising Brock, which come to expect that. This got decent heel hate from the crowd. Heyman, then he makes a big announcement, okay? Paul Heyman finally announces Brock Lesnar's plans for the Royal Rumble. Brock Lesnar, at the Royal Rumble, will be competing in the Royal Rumble match itself, coming in entry number 1. What do I think of this? Personally, I can see why they're doing it, but how this was executed and said made no sense. Okay, I get that Brock Lesnar has no opponents left. Okay, that's because the company is so bad at booking and so bad creatively that Brock has no one left to face. Really, you can put Brock against Drew McIntyre or Aleister Black or Matt Riddle, but that's too creative for this company. So instead, they're putting Brock in the Royal Rumble match at entry number 1, which right there. So Brock's not going to win the Royal Rumble from entry number 1. The Brock, he's probably going to get eliminated by someone. Whoever that someone is will face him at WrestleMania. And also, Brock isn't defending the WWE Championship in the Royal Rumble. So that makes no sense. So Brock's there's no WWE title match. Wow. That's pathetic. Okay, so, yeah, that was this whole opening segment. Just Heyman saying that Brock will be number 1 in the Royal Rumble match. Okay. Talk about predictable. The only thing we don't know is who the exact person who will eliminate Brock and fight him at WrestleMania is, but got a predictable avenue to go there by WWE. So then we move on. We get a Rey Mysterio promo backstage. He's talking a bit of Latin. Then he says that he only has days left at this point in his career because all the years have been behind him. And he thanks Dominic for getting him back into wrestling. And then he promises to win back US Championship. So whatever. Then we get the singles match between Andrade and Rey Mysterio for the United States Championship. This match, it was a great match. No doubt about that, no questions. I think it was a really good match overall. But just the booking, I didn't love. I didn't love the avenue they went with this. So, before the first of 2 mid-match commercials, we get Rey Mysterio doing a suicide dive onto Andrade, and then Andrade putting Rey into an electric chair position, only for Rey to, reverse and send Andrade face first into the steel steps, which didn't look the best, but how Zelina Vega sold it with her face was hilarious. She looked like someone had died. It was great. After the mid-match commercial break, we got the 2 guys going out in the ring. Andrade stood on the ring post and went for a wicked double foot stomp to Rey on the apron, but Rey avoided it. Andrade, moments later, would block a sunset flip, slide from Rey Mysterio, and then Andrade would powerbomb Rey hard onto the floor. Andrade would then block a 619 by delivering a discus elbow strike. Rey Mysterio hit a Canadian Destroyer move on Andrade. Vega, so yeah, this is the first kind of bit I didn't like. So yeah, they do the Canadian Destroyer. Rey Mysterio goes to cover Andrade. He hooks his near leg. Andrade gets his far leg on the rope because Zelina Vega puts it on there. So from there, the referee John Cone counts 1, 2, 3. Andrade loses the title, or so we think. Eventually, they just do the restart, which, I mean, whatever really. So the restart happens. We go to commercial. Back from the break, we get the big dramatic sequence where pretty much Rey Mysterio, he's on the apron, he runs across the apron, dives onto Andrade like Rey always does. Andrade catches Rey. Behind Andrade is Zelina Vega. Andrade tosses Rey onto Zelina Vega. So Zelina crashes to the mat. This horrible, dramatic situation. Zelina's getting checked on by like 4 referees. It wasn't even that bad of a bump, but they're really overplaying it. Rey, he's all distressed. He's checking on Zelina. Get back into the ring. Rey and Andrade go at it for a little bit. They do all of that. And from here, we get literally Rey takes down Andrade. Rey goes into the crowd. Not the crowd, what am I on about? Rey goes back to ringside. So Rey's checking on Zelina again. Rey then goes to get back into the ring. And we get Andrade hitting Hammerlock DDT. 1, 2, 3. Rey Mysterio loses the match. Andrade retains the US Championship. So that's what they did there. Afterwards, they randomly had Andrade rip off Rey Mysterio's mask. So then referees immediately put towels over Rey. So they covered him. So that's what we got there. Andrade retaining because of Zelina, and then unmasking Rey randomly. So we roll on with the show. From here, they go backstage. Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe, they're standing together. Owens says that the enemy of his enemy is his friend, and he also says that that's why him and Joe are together. He says that him and Joe don't play well nice with others. That's fine. Joe then says that he's found a guy they'll team up with and do a 6-man tag against Rollins and AOP later tonight. So from here, we get a commercial break. Afterwards, Rollins and AOP are interviewed by Charlie Caruso as well. Rollins says that he's the chosen one and a beacon of hope for the fans. Whatever. So from here, we get the triple threat tag match, the Raw Tag Team Championships, the Viking Raiders versus the OC versus the Street Profits. I would be fine with this, but my issue is, let's look at the bigger picture for this. Yes, the match was good on tonight's Raw show. But when you look at the holistically, these are the only 3 teams in the Raw Tag division that aren't named the Authors of Pain. Or the Architects of Pain, sorry. These are the only 3 teams in the division fighting for the titles. Who else is there in the tag division? Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins? That's all this division has. So, literally, them doing this is redundant. It's just WWE blowing their load with this, so there's no reason for it. The match itself, I'm not really even going to review much. Basically, Montez Ford did a big suicide dive onto everyone, and then they did a thing where Luke Gallows actually picked up, I think it was Eric, and just tossed him into the crowd. And then we went to a mid-match commercial. Afterwards, the match broke down. It was utter chaos. In the end, Eric and Ivar took over. Ivar hit a big, splash on the top rope onto Carl Anderson. 1, 2, 3. The Viking Raiders retain. This match was good. This is the kind of thing. People who just watch this show, don't think about it, will say, oh, that was really good. What more could you want? They had a great tag title match. And what I could want is an actual tag team division. How's that for a concept? So, yeah, I didn't love this overly. So, we roll on with the show. Backstage, Samoa Joe, he says that he'll reveal the 3rd man, and then after the commercial, they don't reveal the 3rd man, so that was redundant. From here, we go to Becky Lynch. She makes her entrance. They show a bunch of Becky fans in the crowd. They're all so happy that Becky's here. Becky once again says that management don't want her fighting Asuka, but she must do this because it's the one thing she hasn't done yet. She shows a recap of the Royal Rumble from 2019 where Asuka beat her, and then all those matches with the Kabuki Warriors in October, November, and December where Asuka kept beating her. So, I mean, that was fine. Then Asuka makes her entrance. She's shouting. She's all arrogant. That was cool. Asuka gets in the ring and then just proceeds to mock Becky some more. Becky just punches her, and then that's the end of the segment. So, whatever. It's fine. I'm looking forward to Becky and Asuka at the Rumble, but that's about it. So we move on. You guys can get a little bit of comedy out of this. So Eric Rowan's backstage with his cage. He's walking with it. Mojo Rawley comes over randomly. He says that he asks politely, can't see what's in the cage. So Mojo then takes one look, Rowan's allowing this. Mojo takes a look, and then within half a second, he flies back 20 feet. He hits a bunch of crates. Mojo's all freaking out, oh my god, dude, I can't believe what's in there. So Mojo's having a legit panic attack. Mojo is freaking out. I'm thinking to myself, Mojo's one of the worst actors I've ever seen. So Rowan's just laughing, and then Rowan walks off. So that was that. That was just absolute filth. Just Mojo Rawley having a panic attack over the cage. So, whatever. Then we get the recap of the US title stuff from earlier in the show. Andrade is then interviewed alongside Zelina Vega. Andrade is holding Rey's mask, and with the US title, and he's talking in Latin. Then Rey rushes over, you only see the back of his head. Rey beats up Andrade, gets his mask back, and referees are all there panicking. So that's the end of that segment. From here we go to a singles match between Eric Rowan and KJ Orso, who's just some random jobber. KJ's face was utterly hilarious. Like, Rowan was making his entrance, and KJ's eyes were like, just, they were so big and just, it looked hilarious. It looked like he'd been snorting some stuff before he came out. It was so funny to watch. But yeah, this was your typical Rowan squash, nothing really to talk about. The only notable point afterwards, Rowan was at ringside with KJ, and like Rowan's like, you want to see what's in the cage? Gets KJ's face, forces him to look in. KJ's face comes up, and there's like blood or whatever it was on his face. So then KJ runs off panicking, and it looked absolutely ridiculous. Like, the whole thing just, he's running off screaming. So the only thing I thought was, hopefully they have like Rowan's ex-wife's face or something in there, something like creepy and dramatic. But I don't know, I have no hope for them. At best case scenario, they have like that lantern thing the Fiend carries during his entrance. They have something like that in the cage, but that's too creative for them. So from here we go to AJ Styles versus Akira Tozawa. They show the recap of Styles and Orton last week, which I really thought about. That makes no sense. So Randy Orton in the middle of a house show match with AJ Styles couldn't have RKO'd Styles then. He had to fake a knee injury and then draw it out in a Raw segment to just RKO Styles. Orton couldn't have RKO'd Styles at any other time. Like, I like what they do at the house show, but it just doesn't make any sense when you think about it. Anyway, this match with Styles and Tozawa, Styles just like abused him. Afterwards, so Styles got the pinfall. He's like mockingly posing, doing the Orton pose on the ropes. And then some random guy from the crowd just jumps in and security guards tackle him and they rush off to commercial. So we got a streaker on Monday Night Raw, I guess. So that was something notable that happened. But yeah, so besides that, nothing really to talk about there. We move on. From here, so that was the first 2 hours of the show. Like, as I mentioned earlier in the review, it's good, but it's just not anything great. Like, a bunch of the stuff you really think about, it's not the best. It was just alright. So, from here we roll on. Lana, Bob Lashley, they do like a promo segment. The marriage official's in the ring. He like finalizes the marriage. So from there, Lana goes on a tirade about how this should feel more special, but everyone went out and ruined it because they're jealous. Everyone's jealous of her. Lashley says that Rusev tried to ruin their wedding. Then Rusev comes on the Titantron. He's like in front of this beach green screen. It looked god-awful. He's wearing a Hawaiian shirt, talking about how he's free and enjoying his life because he's not involved with Lana and Lashley. Lana begins screaming. She's having this big tirade. Lashley tells her to shut up. Lana acts all offended. Lashley then says that he'll, beat up Rusev and show that he has no balls next week. Rusev then gets all serious and says that he'll channel the Bulgarian Brute next week in their match. So Rusev versus Lashley's official for next week. Whatever. None of you guys really care. So from here, we move on. Like, after a commercial, R-Truth, the 24/7 champion, backstage, he's talking nonsense. Then Liv Morgan comes over for some reason. Why wasn't she involved in the segment just then? So Liv Morgan comes over and says that she hears that Rusev and Lashley are fighting next week. Lana will be in Lashley's corner, or Liv will be in Rusev's corner. So that's what we got there. None of you guys really care. It's just Liv Morgan. There's Lana, Rusev, Bob Lashley. No one cares anymore. And then from here, they did this thing where Charlotte, they showed her before commercial, and she looked even more different to last week. I'm like, that literally looks like Tamina Snooker. Her face, it looked ridiculous. She looked nothing like herself. So anyway, Charlotte comes out. She has this match with Sarah Logan. Sarah Logan, she really took the fight to Charlotte right away, which, I like what they did here with Sarah Logan. They made her look pretty strong, so that was good. Sarah Logan, took Charlotte into the crowd. They, had Sarah Logan take out Charlotte at ringside. Sarah Logan then, was left in the ring. She gets, the flare robe and just starts, making fun of it, mocking it. So from there, they literally get Charlotte to do the big comeback, and Charlotte ended up getting the win. So, whatever. Just a Raw kind of squash. That was the thing with this last hour and a half. The show just became monotonous old Monday Night Raw. Just a bunch of squash matches and nothing happening. So from here, they did that. Didn't really care. We then go to Drew McIntyre versus No Way Jose. What was this? Basically, this was Drew McIntyre assaulting the conga line. He did an Alabama slam like that McIntyre move he does. He did that to one of the conga line members on the ring apron. I like that. And then McIntyre literally won the match in no time. So afterwards, McIntyre does a funny little promo where he says that he'll hit another Claymore kick on No Way Jose and that he's entering the Royal Rumble match and he'll beat anyone. So he hits the extra Claymore. He'd taken out the whole conga line. Whatever. Drew McIntyre should be doing so much better than this. Is this the best you've got for Drew McIntyre? Squashing No Way Jose. He squashed Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. Was it last week or the week before? Like, whatever. So McIntyre deserves so much better. That was his segment here. Then we move on with the show. We get Aleister Black taking on Shelton Benjamin. Like, when I saw this, I'm like, this show has literally fallen off the rails ever since that Becky Lynch and Asuka segment finished. Like, ever since then, it's been the Eric Rowan stuff with the cage, AJ Styles beating Tozawa, and then some streaker coming in and being tackled, the Lana Lashley segment, and then Charlotte Flair squashing Sarah Logan, and then this thing they did with Drew McIntyre, and then they had Aleister Black squashing Shelton Benjamin. That's 6 straight things, which took up like an hour and 15 minutes of this show, which I'm watching thinking, this is just bland Monday Night Raw. It's stuff like that that makes me say, this show is not going to go anywhere in 2020. For the people who watch that first hour, which I know the thought process of the WWE, they gave you that first hour of Raw, first like hour and a half, to really make you think, oh wow, this show's changing. You have a good taste in your mouth, so you can then, you really swallow that last, the second half of the show and be like accepting of the show at the end. But I'm not falling for that. Just because they front load this show with like kind of the main stuff they're doing with title matches, Brock Lesnar, Becky, put all that good stuff in the first half, that doesn't make me watch the second half and just forgive them for putting on just nothing. Like, the second half of this show was, like, what? I mean, just nothing happened. And, like, I'll get to the ending of the show in a minute, but, I mean, this stuff with Aleister Black, so he beat Shelton Benjamin, as you'd expect, nothing to talk about there. Then afterwards, Buddy Murphy just beat him up. So, we're doing Buddy Murphy, Aleister Black 3 because it was great the first 2 times. Let's just do it again because we all want to see just things happen over and over and over again. That's compelling, that's exciting, isn't it, WWE? Just doing these things over and over and over again, like, for Christ's sake. How about you give us an actual, like, story? Because it's just, Murphy attacked him. Like, why are they fighting now? Like, watch Murphy get his win, like, get a win over Aleister Black, and then they'll do Aleister Black Murphy 4, like, sometime soon. Like, give us a reason to care. Give us, like, a fun storyline, some different segments. These are just, having just attacks, like, just not, it's not a real reason to care. So, I mean, that's what we got there with Buddy Murphy and Aleister Black. And then we got this ending to Monday Night Raw. Where do I even begin with this? Okay, so earlier in the review, I was feeling fairly positive. I wanted to give a positive kind of start at the review, saying that the show primarily it was good, but there were plenty of like logic gaps. The main like illogical thing they did on this show came in this like ending. So the whole thing they were trying to advertise throughout the show was who the third man would be, which was their attempt at trying to grab ratings and like keep the viewer around for the full 3 hours. And just like they did when the Street Profits did this same thing, I forget when, like a couple of months ago, it was the Street Profits against the OC, and they had a mystery third man, and that ended up being Kevin Owens. I think it was like November sometime, maybe. They did the same thing here, so Joe and Owens, they came out, Rollins AOP were already in the ring, so it was the big moment. Who's the third man? I'm thinking, surely an NXT guy, a Swerve, someone fresh, Keith Lee, perhaps? I think Keith Lee would have fitted in great here. That would have been sick, something fun, fresh, exciting. Well, it's WWE. Who do you think it was? The Big Show. Big Show, Paul White, he came down. The big boy, he came out, it's 2020. Just forget that though, it's might as well be 2002 because the Big Slow's in the ring. Main event of Raw. Joe Owens, Big Slow versus Rollins AOP. Right there, I gave up caring. There were 15 minutes left in this show, I just zoned out. Because I don't care to see the Big Show on my TV in 2020. It was a joke in 2013 when the Big Show was on my TV screen in the main event. It's now 2020 and the Big Slow is still main eventing shows. What are you doing, Vince? Come on now. So, Big Show main evented Raw. The match itself, literally Rollins AOP beat up Owens for 90% of the match. Then Big Show got a hot tag. And then the match ended up in a DQ mess as Big Show, he was beating up Rollins and then... he's beating up AOP. There was this big brawl and then a steel chair got involved. And then that was the end of the match by DQ. So the main event was a waste of time. It's classic Monday Night Raw. So, yeah, complete waste of time main event. And then Big Show, they do the big ending of the show. Big Show did his WMD, KO punch, whatever they call it now. Knocks out Rollins, quote unquote. And then Rollins is being pulled away by AOP. So we end the show with Big Show standing tall with Owens and Joe. So you've got these just 3 big guys in the ring. Obviously Big Show's the biggest. And then they just advertise what we got next week. So next week on Raw, Buddy Murphy against Aleister Black. It's number 3, which that should be great. But once again, I said earlier in the video, you need a new reason to care about Buddy Murphy and Aleister Black. So that's that. They should have a great match next week. I don't doubt that. And then we have we have Rusev versus Bob Lashley again. That's just going to be HLA with Lana and Liv Morgan. That's all that'll be. And then they announced a fist fight where Owens and Joe will take on Rollins and AOP. But they didn't announce the fact that, well, Big Show's going to be involved. So they showed the same graphic as they did that's on the screen now, only Big Show, whatever. Basically, they botched the graphic and it'll be a fist fight between these 6 guys next week. Don't care. And then, what else is next week's show? Oh yeah, Randy Orton and AJ Styles having another match. So they're just doing more rematches on top of rematches on top of rematches, not giving me any reason to care as a fan. So that's pretty disappointing for the WWE. But yeah, so that was Monday Night Raw for January 6th, 2020. The first Raw episode of this decade. Was it good? Not really. I mean, it's good if you want to just watch it without thinking about what's happening on the show. When you really think about it, this show was filled with logic gaps. Overall, I'm going to give this show D+. I feel like the ending being what it was, where it was just Big Show, like, that took the show from a C to a D+. I can't give the show a C when the Big Show is your big ending. Like, it's the Big Show. It's 2020. It's not 1998. It's not 2004. It's 2020. So, that's the overall rating for Raw, D+. Going into next week, I like how they had those, they advertise what's on next week at the end. I think it's good they do that. It shows they're actually thinking at least a week in advance, which I shouldn't be giving them that much credit for, because in pro wrestling, you should be at least, you should have plans 4-6 months down the line, but still, next week's show should be alright, and yeah. So that was Monday Night Raw, first ever episode of the 2020s. Yeah, I've said it a couple of times now, I'll just one last time say it. The show, after about the hour and a half mark, it really just, in my eyes, just fell off a cliff, basically. Especially that ending with Big Show. The stuff with Lana and Bob Lashley, again, not great. Just a bunch of squash matches without much logic. And yeah, classic Raw, really. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, sub. See you next time.